these discussions where they get like one person in a field and they surround them with like 20 people that have opposing views and they try to have a discourse. So this past week they posted up, they released a video of 20 Trump supporters versus one progressive, and the progressive was Sam Seder. Um, I'm not really familiar with Sam Seder, but he is a host of a pretty popular podcast. His YouTube channel and the podcast they have over like 1.2 million views. He's also a former actor, and so uh, they had this surrounded episode. It was about an hour and a half long, and I originally got brought into it because of some clips that were posted on where one woman was straight up espousing views of xenophobic nationalism. She was asking basically, what's wrong with it? You know, why would that be considered wrong to have xenophobic nationalism? Um, then there was someone asking about DEI and how, they got everything pretty much confused in that regard. Another person was talking about, trans people in the military. And so they were going back and forth having this discussion, um, which, if you get a chance to watch it, I would recommend it. It's interesting, but it's also sad in a way because a lot of these viewpoints were just so far off base, so misinformed, uh, that it was scary in a way because these are people that voted. These are people that, you know, uh, promoted certain ideologies and certain candidates over others, or even certain viewpoints in public. Um, and to see that they were proudly and gleefully promoting these certain views, like this idea of what's wrong with xenophobic nationalism, in a country like the United States of America, where Sam Cedar pointed out, we are a melting pot. This is what we painted ourselves as, right? Um, a melting pot of all different types of cultures, of all different types of viewpoints, coming together and living together for the common good of the United States of America. Um, this wouldn't have happened. Someone wouldn't have gone on a public forum in video and full-throatedly brought up these viewpoints 15 years ago. It wouldn't have happened, right? We're in such a different space right now.
Right.
So this is interesting. This conversation was interesting and quite enlightening, and scary in many regards.
Yeah. Now, I know a few minutes ago you mentioned that woman who was saying that we have a dominant culture in the US and
Right.
it's Eurocentric and whatever. So,
Now, one thing real quick before that, it seems like, not that she was a plant, but this woman apparently is a part of a extremely far right media group who
okay.
this is their whole MO.
Well,
So,
many of the people who are on that series, that YouTube series, are repeats. It's not like they're just plucking random people from the street or whatever. These are
right.
people who are involved in
Sure, sure.
in these issues in some way, and you'll see the same people often over and over again on the episodes. In fact, that one guy, Micah, right? I've seen him pop up as one of the conservatives in a bunch of those videos.
Mm.
So, yeah, I was just thinking earlier on the show when you alluded to this woman, that's an example of someone who could be deported under this, right? Under this constitutional framework.
Sure.
But maybe she feels safe now because she is espousing views that mirror the administration's on some level, right? But what if one day there's a president in office who disagrees, who has a different approach? Is she now going to be deported? Now maybe she was a U.S. citizen, maybe she's born here, but let's say she wasn't. Let's say someone wasn't a citizen, right? And again, based on the precedent here, not someone in the U.S. unlawfully. We're not talking about so-called illegal immigrants. We're talking about lawful residents of the U.S., green cards, student visas, and so forth. Imagine you're a lawful permanent resident of the US and you're being deported for statements like that. Because for sure, statements that she made, I would consider to be outrageous. And that's being polite. There are words that I want to use that I want stronger than outrageous. I mean, I think my statement to you when I saw that is he's basically a Nazi. And I know that word gets thrown around and people,
Right.
it's a harsh accusation to make, but listen to what she said. She said that, I believe she used the phrase xenophobic nationalism. And that's what she wanted. She said we should be
Sure.
xenophobic nationalists. And she
Yeah.
said we already have a dominant culture in the US, and that is European. And that's all we should accept in the US. I mean, that really is walking the line of Nazism as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Right. Exactly. Another thing that was really it was it's really disheartening to see was the black guy that was uh defending anti-DEI things, and it's like, wow, dude, you really
Well,
mm. And here's the
yeah,
thing, let me
a lot of what was happening, it was odd because it seemed like they were all sticking to their talking points, even if,
even when they were debunked.
yeah, and even if it didn't even really answer the claim that was being made, right? Because the way
Right.
it's set up, the progressive gentleman will make a claim, and now all of these conservatives are supposed to refute or
Right.
debunk or rebut what he's saying. A lot of them would just come in with their talking points that weren't even really responsive to the point he was making. They just wanted to talk
Right.
about what they wanted to talk about.
Exactly, exactly. And that happened quite often.
Yeah,
And so a lot of it like meandered off of the point to something different. And a couple of times guys were like, "Well, I don't even want to talk about that. I'm going to say
right,
this." It's like, "Well, that's
right.
not what the format. That's not what we're here for."
Yeah. Now I stepped out
Give
for a
that
minute.
one guy's credit. He did when it seemed like when he got to the point where he could not defend his argument anymore, he did voluntarily say, "I'm going to tap out and let someone else come in here," because he just wasn't able to.
Right. That was a black dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did you talk about, because I stepped out for a minute, did you talk about the guy who was saying that government agencies get tax breaks for hiring people of color? And he kept saying that.
Right. And he was
And,
he was saying they get tax breaks. Yeah, and Sam Cedar, who was the progressive in this
right,
case, was saying that it's like, what are you talking about? Government agencies don't pay taxes.
right.
I think, and he kept trying to push that point, saying, "Oh, public or private, they pay taxes." Like they're funded by the taxes. They're not
Yeah,
bringing revenue in. They're not independent businesses. They're funded
yeah.
by taxes. They have a budget
Government,
to
the
spend.
government, the government taxes you. That they
Right.
give taxes. They don't get taxed. It's like
Right.
I kick ass in court. I don't get my ass kicked in court. This is a one-way street. So
Right.
yeah, like I don't know where that was coming from. I mean, obviously someone had told him that at some point because he was on that. He didn't want to get off of it, even when he was told repeatedly that wasn't the case. And
Right. And it's the same. No, keep going. Sorry.
no, it was just that's what you got. You got a lot of people who were spewing misinformation or
Right.
straight up fabrications and dying on those hills.
They were dying on this hills is absolutely correct. So there was another point they were talking about Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
That people were saying they confused this spending of Social Security benefits because it's the largest expenditure that the government spends, and they would confuse that with raising the debt. And Sam Cedar was saying like Social Security does not add to the debt.
Right. By law, it cannot.
By law, it can't add to the
Yeah.
debt. So even if it's the biggest expenditure out there, it's not what's putting us in debt.
Right.
Um, and the money and I know it's demonized for being called an entitlement, but it's an entitlement because you pay into the system, so you are entitled to getting the benefit
Yeah.
out of the system.
Right. Now, also, there was confusion, I think, on both sides about that because you do get more. I know it's capped, right? But you get
Right, right,
more if you earned more during your life. And
right.
I don't think that point was acknowledged even by Sam.
No, I don't think it was. He was the point that they kept sticking to was the contribution cap.
Yeah.
Um, and and it's funny, it's like there was a miscommunication between Sam and the guy that he was debating at that point because Sam was saying like there's I think it was like 6% that everyone pays in 6 something percent, and the guy was saying, oh, so you're saying that um Sam's point was that everyone pays the same percentage, but it's capped. And the other guy was saying that, oh, so you're saying that um, the rich people should have a higher percentage. He's like, no, they have the same percentage,
Mhm.
but it's capped. So the 6% that they were paying gets cut off. So they don't pay in their full amount of 6% of their income like other people will pay. So they're getting a basically they're getting a break off of that.
Right.
And I don't think they actually I think they were kind of missing each other in that understanding, you know.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're making, 100,000 per year, you pay 6% of your income into Social Security, you're paying $6,000. All right. The cap, I think it was what was it like 1,200 for I guess per payment or something like that. So your payment at $100,000 would get in, but if you're making $1 million a year at 6%, you're not going to pay that $60,000 that
Right.
that you should be paying. And so the conservative guy was trying to say that everyone should be paying the same amount, and Sam was saying the same thing, but the cap was what
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
missing for them.
And it's interesting from a sociological point of view, maybe, about how you do have people now on both sides of the ideological spectrum finding some common ground or some common purpose in what they're trying to get at, but they're not even able to talk in a reasoned and rational way or in a way that might lead them to solutions because they're so captured by their own bubbles that the
Right.
language that they use, the terms that they use, the way they think about these things, the way they approach these subjects are so different that it's like they're living in different worlds. And so even though there is common ground to be found, they can't find it because even their vocabulary is so different.
Right. Yeah. Um, and there was a point that Sam kept saying, he's like, you know, cutting Social Security hurts you too. Like, well, I don't understand what the problem is, you know?
Yeah. But what was, yeah. I mean, I guess there were some more libertarian views there. Like the one guy was saying that we should just do away with it and tell children to just save up for retirement. And if they don't, that's their problem. That's kind of a crazy way of looking at the world.
Right.
You
And
want
the
to talk
thing
about
is here,
entitlement, by the way, right? That's how entitled can you get?
right. And see the problem with that is, one, like Sam said, what if they don't do it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's not really it is a case of what if they don't, but what
What if
if
they
they don't
can't
know
do it?
how? What if they can't?
Yeah, yeah. Who
Right?
has that luxury? I mean, that's something you say if you are coming from a place of privilege or entitlement, right? Or like like you're good. Maybe
Right.
you might say that if you got a couple $100,000 in the bank. You know what I mean? But if
Right.
you're struggling paycheck to paycheck, to be like, the system should be you have to have enough to retire, to live off of 65 plus till the day you die. I mean, that's kind of a crazy point of view.
Right. And then on top of that, it's not even it well, I mean, on top of that, what if you can't do it? But if you don't know how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but if you don't, let's say you're not able to, and a large number of people, we know a large number of people in the United States live paycheck to paycheck, right? It's a very, very high percentage. And so they're going to get to that point and they're not going to be able to do it.
Right.
And so at that point, we're going to have to deal with extreme levels of elderly homelessness. That's going to become a public problem.
Yep.
And ultimately, it's going to become a public financial problem.
Yeah.
So this is something that helps save money in the long run, protect citizens to some degree, even though people say, even Social Security is not enough to live on, but it does give some to kind of slow down that
Yeah.
homelessness
It's a
for
safety net
elderly.
in some regard.
It's a small
Yeah.
sort of safety net.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately it's put in place to try to better the country, and it saves money, and it doesn't add to the debt. Like,
Right.
it
But it's a
doesn't
good
make any
point.
sense.
It's a good point that you just made, where that guy's attitude was, well, it's not my problem. He's like, I'm good. I got
Right,
X dollars. I'm fine. I don't got to worry about it. If you don't have that for your retirement, that's not my problem. But it
right.
would become his problem if,
Yes.
like you said, you had basically every elderly person homeless on the streets. Well, now he's got a problem, right? And I'm sure he'll be complaining at that point about our government is so inefficient. We can't even stop elder homelessness. Why do we have such a big rampant problem? Because he was one who was saying that quote unquote entitlement should be taken away.